making it go like we do. This is Mission Log Live. Yes, Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern. Other times, other places. As I say, it is Mission Log Live. No, I'm not a Packlid. According to some, I'm Ken Ray.
And I'm John Champion. And each week on Mission Log Live, we say hello to our Star Trek pals. That would be you, our Star Trek pals. And then you say hello to us. That's really the fun part. Whatever is on your mind, whatever you want to talk about, well, that's what we discuss on this show. So click the link, pick up the phone, do the thing, talk to us. Our special guest this evening is Dave Rossi. You know the name? We had Dave with us once before. He has worked for Paramount in one capacity or another on the Star Trek franchise since TNG, way back in the TNG days. He's had his hands in DS9, Voyager, Enterprise, feature films, and even themed attractions. Yes, we'll say hello to Dave in just a moment.
And you can say hello to Dave as well. It's easy. Just click the Zoom meeting link on your screen or use the one tap from your smartphone. You can dial us up as well. 669-900-6833 is the phone number to call. 669-900-6833. What do you do then? Then you enter the meeting code. Then you talk to Earl. But it all begins like this. 669-900-6833. We do thank you for joining us live tonight, either on Facebook or at YouTube at youtube.com/roddenberryprod. Hey, maybe you're picking up the audio podcast later. That's fantastic. However you're getting here, we do thank you for joining us. As always, we do have one other favor to ask. However you're finding us, please hit like, please hit share, because we want more people to know about this and then come and join our little, Star Trek talking party.
Hey, right away, as we're talking and I'm reading what people are saying in the chat room, right away, people are saying, hey, Ken, cool pin. Are you going to have some cool paraphernalia in Vegas or as DCC? And yeah, we're going to get to that in just a minute because we're going to show you the whole collection. So hold that thought. But I want to say hi to everybody. There's Paul. There's John Cooley. That was from Casey, Chris Riker. We got, there's Casey. Say, where's my Cooley? There he is. There's Judy, there's Julian, there's Homer. There's so many of our friends there saying hi. Say hello to all of you. And let's see, Julian says, it's 11 p.m. Atlantic time, being all fancy and Canadian like you do. So welcome to everybody. And by the way, there's a handful of people here asking if we're going to interrupt this live broadcast with the interruption of the Apollo 11 live simulcast that they were doing on CBS on YouTube. That was so cool. I posted that on Facebook, Ken. I don't know if you saw any of it. It's like a 6-hour chunk of CBS with commercials intact from the day of the launch of Apollo 11.
I have not seen that, but I saw the website that, of course, they were talking about, that Allison was talking about on Daily Star Trek News.
Right.
I want to say last week, there's a website where you can go and just sort of scroll through the whole thing real time, which is kind of nuts. No, I missed the thing today. But
yeah.
But I hear somebody
awesome.
Taped it, so
yeah, apparently they did. And then Dave points out that in VR you can actually go to the moon. Again, that is our secret meeting spot. Very often before a VR show, we just go to Tranquility Base and hang out on the moon and chat.
So, are we talking about Sansar stuff tonight? I can't remember.
Do you want to mention it?
Well, I don't think we have anything planned, but seriously, the first time I went into Sansar was, I guess, about a year and a half ago, maybe. And they do have a fantastic museum set up that's dedicated to the lunar missions. It's all the Apollo missions, isn't it, John? Or
yeah.
Is it just okay.
Yeah.
And I've always told people about it because it's just so amazing. You go into this room and there's this gigantic Earth globe there that's probably about twice the size of a guy. Mm-hmm. And it's got this red line going around it and around it and around it and around it. And then it just takes off towards the other end of the room. And that red line, if you stick your big virtual head in that red line, it starts playing for you the transmissions that were going back and forth between mission control and whichever Apollo mission you happen to have your head near at that point. Just absolutely stunning. I mean, yeah, the thing about going and walking up on the moon is pretty cool. It's neat to get that close to the lunar lander. But there's a lot more there. And that's, we're not even talking about a thing that we're doing right now, just sansar.com. They have a lot of really cool stuff. And this week would be an excellent time to check out their lunar museum.
Well, it'd be a good time to check that out. And remember, if you sign up for Sansar, that is such a great segue into what we'll be doing at STLV. We'll get to that in just a second because Sansar is doing some cool stuff there, but they're also going to be at Comic-Con. Now, we don't have a direct tie-in with them at Comic-Con, but we will see them. We'll hang out. We're going to do the virtual thing. But if you happen to be going to San Diego this week, the Roddenberry panel, Roddenberry Presents panel, rather, will be at 1:30 Thursday afternoon, followed shortly thereafter by Mission Log Libre. That is our meetup on the 18th at 4 o'clock at Havana 1920. That's right there on Fifth Avenue. So come by, have a drink or two or three with us. Then we'll have the podcasters panel on Saturday the 20th. That's why we asked all of you last week in our poll question, is Utopian Star Trek passé? We'll get to those results in just a moment. And then Sunday, Larry will be doing an interview with Robert Butler, director of The Cage. Do not miss that if you will be in San Diego on Sunday. That'll be at noon, and that'll be in the convention center. So I believe it's in room 29A. But it's a guy who directed The Cage. And according to Judy Leary, one of our listeners, she said he also directed the pilot of Moonlighting. That's for you.
Really?
Ken. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Well, then we should get him on.
We should, absolutely. That would be awesome.
Well, hey, Ken, bug him in the middle of Larry's thing, because Larry's a friend.
That's fine. Yeah,
I don't think he'll mind.
Yeah, that'll be great.
Excuse me, can you talk about the difficult directing decisions you made when Dave came in and saw Maddie for the first time?
You see, that's so good.
It just goes from there. Yeah. Hey, so then we got STLV after that.
Right.
Yeah, it's so weird. I think you and I are the only two people I know for whom SDCC is the pregame. Right.
Yeah, it's very true.
Yeah, because then STLV is happening. We got a ton of stuff going on there, including because you asked, because you wanted to know. Yeah, see that right there? I can even take it off. And no, I think Earl might have some beautiful button footage that he could roll. I'm not 100%, but yeah, we got pins for our show for both this show, Mission Log Live. I can't wear all 6 right now. We got Mission Log Live. We got Mission Log. Women at War, Priority One, the Trek Files, and Daily Star Trek News. And then another show that's going to be joining really soon. Going to be talking a lot about that at SDCC. John and or I may have a handful of Mission Log pins at SDCC, but come by the giant Roddenberry booth, and we'll have pins for all of the shows and some other pins you might want to check out as well. And you can talk to us. So really, just all kinds of stuff. Plus the events, landing party, of course, on the 30th at the Masquerade Bar at the Rio. That's usually around 9 o'clock, 9:30, John?
Yeah, about 9 o'clock.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then Thursday, so we have a day to recover from the landing party. On Thursday, there is the Roddenberry panel. And then after that, there is the Mission Log panel. And then is it Friday or Saturday is the RPN panel? I believe Friday.
Sure.
Saturday.
Yes.
Okay. We will check and we will let you know for certain next week.
Yeah.
Either Friday or Saturday. I believe it's Friday. I've got it in my head that it's Friday, but I'm not sure. But anyway.
Hey, here's a fun fact. So we know the topic for the RPN panel at Vegas, and that's why we asked the question last week, is Utopian Star Trek passé? Oh, no, wait, I'm sorry. We're doing how to get to the 24th century from here.
That's the RPN panel.
That'll be the RPN panel, as opposed to the RPN panel at Comic-Con. Now, here's the fun thing. We actually don't know yet the topic of the Mission Log panel in Vegas. So all of you who are watching live, all of you who are calling in, because I know you're ready, you got your fingers on the button, you're clicking the Zoom link. Maybe you've got an idea. We're receptive. We love to hear your ideas and thoughts, because maybe it's better than what Ken or I could come up with in the next 12 hours before we need to email that off for printing in the program. So let us know. Let us know what you'd like to hear us talk about at the Mission Log panel. Maybe with Rod. Maybe. We don't know.
A lot of people don't know this, by the way. Receptive is French for desperate.
Yes. Good point.
We're receptive to your ideas, is what we're saying.
All right. So that actually leads us very well to the poll. The poll last week, we asked you a question about the SDCC panel. Ken, why don't you tell us the results of that one?
The question last week is Utopian Star Trek passé. Thankfully, 13% say yes. Utopian Star Trek has had its day. I say thankfully because that means 87% say no. They think there's still room, maybe even more than room. Maybe it's a necessity. They think Utopian Star Trek has not outlived its usefulness. And as we say here at Mission Log, long may you wave. John, there is a new poll question for this week.
There's a new poll question, and I decided I wanted to direct something a little bit towards some questions that I have for our guest tonight. So when we had Dave on last time, we talked about TOS Remastered. We talked about all kinds of stuff. But one of my fascinations, not just with Star Trek, is themed attractions, theme parks. So I wanted to ask our listeners, have you been to a Star Trek attraction? And you might be thinking only of Star Trek The Experience, but no, there is the Borg Assimilator roller coaster. There have been touring shows. There have been the concert shows, all kinds of stuff that falls under Star Trek attractions. 43% of you say, yes, you've been to a Star Trek attraction. 57% of you said no. Oh, wait, I have an update. This is fun. This is just like real news. 39% of you say yes. 61% of you say no. So sorry to see those numbers have just shifted a little bit. But we can talk about what some of those attractions were, what they are, what they might be in the future if we're really nice to Dave. So that then is our question to you. And what better time to bring on our guest, Dave Rossi, joining us tonight. Like I said before, you know him as a longtime Paramount executive with deep ties to Star Trek. You may also know him as one of those key persons behind the TOS remasters. Joining us again on the live show, let's welcome Dave Rossi. How are you doing tonight, sir?
Good, guys. Thank you for having me back.
It's a pleasure. You know, not everybody gets that privilege to come back. You know? Yeah. So we're glad to have you. Before we get into it, what are you working on now? I mean, I'm just,
Oh, well, we are working on some Star Trek attractions for some overseas parks that may or may not get built. We're hoping that they do. But Star Trek is, in the history of Paramount, and now that CBS owns it, but we still have a great relationship with CBS. And Star Trek is always a big component. So in each of the projects we're working on right now, Star Trek is an entire land.
Wow.
So, yeah.
If you don't mind my asking, there seems to be, if you listen to Daily Star Trek News or something else, I don't know if you do or not, but other people who might be listening now, there seems to be a recurring theme about some London-based something or other that's like a Paramount in cooperation with, I can't remember if it's Channel 4 or who it is. You may not be allowed to say exactly what you're working on, but since you already said overseas, I feel like I'd be an idiot if I didn't ask.
I can't talk too much about that project, but yes, we are in fact. This was a project that we were involved with a few years ago, and the project kind of went silent for a little while, but now it's back, and we are. In fact, some of our team is there right now in a design kickoff to talk about what it could be. So, yeah, that's.
A couple of years ago, friends of mine and I used to joke that a Star Trek theme park, this is how we saw a Star Trek theme park going, and forgive me if I told you this before, but basically you get in line for the ride, and then a Klingon comes and like shoves his way in front of you, and then you spend the 2 hours that you're in line talking to the Klingon about why what they did was rude, and then that's the ride. You finish the line, and if you've made peace with the Klingon, you've pretty much done what you're going to do anyway.
So, Ken, what you're saying is you've been hiding in our offices.
Well, okay, but here's the thing, though. You've got stuff like Galaxy's Edge, which I haven't been to yet, but you've got things that are hugely immersive. But it's like Galaxy's Edge has Smuggler's Run, right? Where you're doing a very Star Wars thing of getting in a ship and going and trying to beat the thing and win and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
How do you approach today, especially? Because, I mean, I won't say anything dumb like, Star Trek The Experience built itself, but we had TNG, we had those characters at the time. There was a freshness to it. How do you approach the idea of an attraction today when attractions tend to be, lasers and drops and things like that?
Well, we do. First of all, it's being at Paramount. We have now the J.J. Abrams universe to build off as well. But with CBS's new font of Star Trek that's coming, when we talk about these parks, it takes years to build these things. So we're still 3-4 years away from anything really becoming solid. And CBS has, expressed an interest in us being able to use some of their new properties as well. So we're still in the discussion phase about what all of these will be. But But we have some really very innovative, cool attractions planned that people have never seen before. I mean, from an attraction standpoint, and you know, the mantra of the theme park attraction is you go on the ride, and you know the story is as you're doing something goes terribly wrong, and so you know that, I mean, that's the way these things work. And some of that is true in some of our attractions, and it's not in some of the others. So we're really hoping that that these things get built. And unfortunately, we don't. You know, as a licensing group, we don't control whether they get built or not. There are investment companies involved and people who are trying to do these things, and we're licensing Star Trek and designing the attractions for them. But the projects we're involved in right now, since I've been with this group, this is the most excited we have been about the prospect of something getting built. So we're looking forward to hopefully unveiling something.
I know we have a caller on the line, and I want to get to him in just a moment, but I have to ask really quickly. Do you feel like, I mean, is that what's driving that excitement? Is it all of the new Star Trek that's coming on the television? Is it the fact that there are now 2 Star Wars lands and an Avatar land out there in the future that are making sort of like branded lands maybe make a bit more sense? Is it residual from the JJ Trek? Oh, please tell me it's because of the Quentin Tarantino movie. I mean, what is it that's driving that excitement for you guys right now?
We're excited about the ability to give people attractions that immersive experiences that they haven't been able to experience before, especially personally as it relates to Star Trek. You know, ever since Harry Potter launched, that has become the new paradigm. It's now creating as realistic as possible, immersive, very detailed environments that people who love these franchises can enjoy in a kind of a real way. And so that's our goal. I mean, that's what we're excited about, bringing Star Trek to life in a way that it really hasn't probably since Star Trek The Experience. And even Star Trek The Experience, for as cool as it was, I mean, obviously once you get on the Enterprise, that's a themed experience, and there was Quark's Bar, but it wasn't really Quark's Bar. And there's, you know, we're talking about really creating immersive experiences that make you feel like you're part of that universe.
And the best part is, if it's truly immersive, it has to be free.
Oh no, there's credits and Quatloos galore, my friend.
Oh, okay. My bad. I must have misunderstood. I'm sorry, John. I interrupted you.
Oh no, I definitely want to come back to this. Like I said, this is an area that really fascinates me about just the development of themed entertainment. But we do have Craig standing by, and I think we should take his question, or hopefully he's got a whole panel mapped out for us for STLV. So, Craig, welcome to the show. How are you doing tonight?
All right, great. Hello, gentlemen. Yeah, the Star Trek Experience was great, and anything that stopped by at Star Trek, I always go to see it. That you can experience. That's for sure. I called. Really, you asked me last time what my first convention was like in 1973.
Yes.
Tell us. What I remember was first, like I said, meeting face to face with Dee. And then listening to Gene Roddenberry being the greatest bird of the galaxy, and the costumes, they were just awesome. That as a kid, Gene Roddenberry got me through the IDIC. You know, the animated series was my series. And although I was into Planet of the Apes, I did a Planet of the Apes thing for about 10 years at the Star Trek conventions. I met Nurse Chapel for the first time at the convention, and I bought 4 Tribbles from that convention. And the rumor has it that they were selling, 6 years earlier, they had the show Trouble with Tribbles, and they were selling them at the conventions. I like to think that I have one of those, but I don't know.
Right.
And my Quattro Triticale. And lots of people. That's what I remember.
That's pretty amazing. Well, I mean, that sort of is a that sort of is a themed experience then at that point. I mean, I think that's partly what the attraction is of conventions. I mean, you show up and there's 1,000 other people around you who are wearing costumes and truly walking
loving what you love.
Yeah, exactly. Being connected with your passion for that thing. By the way, Craig, bring that Tribble with you. I'm sure that David Gerald could authenticate it for you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that'd be great. And going to the convention. Yeah, it's like being with friends. It's amazing. And then at some point, I would like to talk to Ken about this side of paradise and a couple issues. I know. Yeah.
Are you coming?
I'm halfway, partly in your cult.
Are you coming to? It's not a cult, dude. Although
that's what you referred to it as a convention. During the episode, if you listen to it,
did I really?
Episode 24.
Yeah, it's been a few years now. But are you gonna be in Las Vegas?
Absolutely.
All right. Hey, so John, we may actually have our panel. It's an oldie but a goodie.
Oh man,
that was the first episode I ever saw.
That was the first episode you ever saw, really, and your parents let you keep watching it.
Yeah.
Far out.
Oh, yeah, but see, it's because of that. You made me think Star Trek I was like, what? You had me outraged, but then I went back and yeah, it was brilliant. I mean, it totally took me out. Now I watch Star Trek a completely different way. It was great.
I have. Thanks, man. That actually means a lot to me. That's strange to hear, and I don't mean that in any kind of funny way. It's always weird when John or I hear anything like that. But I really appreciate you saying that. It means a lot.
That's awesome. Craig,
okay. Yeah, I'll talk to you at the convention.
No, excellent. Yeah. Please do come by the table and hey, grab a pin while you're there because we have a couple.
Oh, got it.
Thanks a lot, Craig. Hey, 669-900-6833 is the phone number to call, 669-900-6833. Or you can use the one tap from your smartphone, or if you're on a computer and you're on the Facebook, punch in the stuff there and hit the thing and talk to Earl, and then he'll put you on with us. It really could be simpler, but it's really not that difficult.
Yeah. Hey, Dave, let's open up some old wounds with Ken. So tell me, the first episode you saw was This Side of Paradise. What in the world did you think of that when you saw it? And what's your take on that episode now?
Well, I tuned in just as they were beaming down. So the first thing I saw was a visual effect, which as a, 8-year-old kid was, I hadn't seen anything like that before. It was pretty cool. Then you got the guy with the ears. But the thing that captured me about that episode was just Kirk's force of will as we get towards the end of the episode. I mean, just that he angered himself out of the s'mores. And I was like, wow, this guy is, he's a superhero. And I love the episode. I didn't know anything about any of the characters. And of course, so you obviously, see Spock go through his change, but I didn't really know anything about Vulcans or what had been established. But it was really Kirk that captured it for me, and it's hard for me to if you want me to go back and give a more learned opinion about that episode, it's so tied to my love of Star Trek and how I started with it. It's hard for me to go in and pick it apart. I'll watch it every time it's on, and it's
sure.
I always have a great time with it. So I have nothing bad to say about it. What's Ken? What is your?
Oh snap! Oh,
I don't even remember. It's been too long.
It was. Come on.
No, the reason it's an issue. I mean, it's not an issue. It's not a thing. It's fine, Dave. It's fine. It was that we had. So I think basically I said that Kirk should not have taken the people away from the Spore planet. And the reason I thought he shouldn't have done that was because while it was supposed to be like a whole illustration about the drug culture and how bad that is and all that stuff, those drugs were working, and they were working great. They were happy. They were healthy. They were never going to die. And I know that's antithetical to Kirk, because if you're not working, you're not living, as far as Kirk's concerned. But I mean, take it on a case by case basis, I think.
But what about those people's original purpose for going there and their original drive to be there? That all gets erased. I mean, don't you think they were subverted by this?
They didn't seem upset by it. See, here's the thing. If they went there and they were subverted by it, and their limbs were falling off, or their hair was falling out, or they were, not eating anymore. I mean, what they found, my argument at the time, and apparently it's still one that I can reach back and find because I haven't watched that episode seriously since I think we did that. But once they go there, and once they are healthy, once they are happy, my assumption is they've actually achieved what they ultimately want to achieve, which is health and happiness. And so if the thing they went there to do,
at the end of the episode, when Sandoval comes out of it, his first thought is, we've accomplished nothing here. We've done nothing of what we set out to do. I mean, he's got a look on his face that is mournful. He's not, these things took them over, and that's a great symbiotic relationship, I guess. But they didn't ask for that.
Wasn't that also the only time, the time that Spock said it was the only time he'd ever been truly happy?
Well, that's true, but that's neither here nor there.
It's a bummer, man. They harshed his buzz. It's too bad. No, I mean, this is like you can revisit the whole thing with our episode, and then and then with Marc Altman.
See, that's the thing. You've only hit half of it, Dave. The reason it really became an issue was because then people started lining up to come on and yell at me about it. And after a while, I was like, we can really talk about something else. Speaking of which, 669-900-6833 is the phone number to call. This, by the way, John, should not be the panel, I'm thinking.
Oh, okay. All right.
Maybe 669-900-6833, or you can use the one tap from your smartphone, or you can do the Facebook thing and talk to Earl, and he'll put you on with us.
The last caller mentioned Planet of the Apes. Did you ever hear Mark Leonard's story about the trading cards that they took of him?
No.
He used to tell this great story about how he played on the TV show Urko, who was the gorilla head of the guards.
Right.
And he said one day they came down with a photographer and they were taking photos for trading cards. And he said the horrible thing about the makeup was you had it on all day and you could only eat things that were very long or things through a straw. So he said he was at the craft service table and he was eating a long stalk of celery. And later, 6 months later, the trading card series comes out. And the trading card of Urko is him standing at the craft service table, eating a stalk of celery. And at the bottom, it says, Urko, the thrill of the hunt.
I love it.
I've been trying to find that trading card and I can't find it anywhere. But Mark Leonard told that story at a convention one time, and I just thought it was the perfect.
That's so cool.
Story.
I love it. Hey, I want to go back to the conversation we were having about themed attractions and about Star Trek and Galaxy's Edge. First of all, have you been to Galaxy's Edge yet?
I have not.
All right, neither have I. But soon enough, this will happen sometime. Yeah. And the thing that I think is so intriguing about it is the idea that it is so immersive, and the story is your story being in that place, as opposed to passively watching something happen in front of you and say, this is Luke's story or this is Rey's story. No, it's a new thing. It's a new place speaking the Star Wars language. But it becomes your adventure there, and the characters are there to interact with you so that you walk away with a wholly unique and wholly realized and immersive experience from it. I kind of go back to Ken's question, which was, how do you make Star Trek do that? And I'm not asking you to give away any secrets here or talk about what it is that might be in development or whatever, but it seems that in Star Trek, there is a lot of standing around talking. It seems that, violence is a last resort. Now, there, of course, is the exploration angle, going someplace to learn something, to discover something. But I kept asking myself, what is it about Star Wars that is different from Star Trek that makes that so ripe and ready for that type of themed entertainment? And maybe we haven't quite gotten it yet with Star Trek, even though there's this vast library of Star Trek entertainment, and Star Trek The Experience was very successful, but even you were saying it wasn't quite that.
No, as an overall theme, it wasn't. I mean, I think what they did with the story of, the reason you get beamed to the Enterprise was clever. It was, somebody, Klingons monkeying with the timeline because one of you is an ancestor of Captain Picard, or a predecessor of Captain Picard. So, I mean, I thought that was a clever idea, and a way to kind of put you in the story. This is hard for me to answer because I can't talk about what we're doing for the land. But when you watch Star Trek, you don't want to be no offense to somebody like the colonists, but you don't want to be a member of the colonist team. You don't want to be a member of a merchant marine squad. You don't want to be a member of the guys flying around on the Antares. You want to be a member of
you want to be on the Enterprise crew. You want to be
the Federation. So let's just leave it there.
I will tell you honestly, though, I like the idea of a vacation package where it's like, you're a colonist. You can stay. It's like it's half price. We may ask if we can shoot you like 1 day out of 5.
Yeah,
and sadly, you're not allowed to talk to anybody who's actually doing anything. You're allowed to sort of, you can talk to other people who are like in line for food with you, or digging in the herbs with you. Otherwise, so just stay away from anybody in the uniform, basically, because otherwise your ticket costs twice as much that day. 669-900-6833 is the phone number to call. 669-900-6833, or you can use the one tap from your smartphone, or do Facebook and then punch in the meeting code and talk to Earl, and he'll get you on with us. Dave brought up something interesting before we started the show about the fatigue that people had having 2 whole Star Trek series on at one time. We're going to get to what's coming up in just a bit, but first, do we have other things that we want to do at this point in the show, Mr. Champion?
We do. Just a tiny bit of business here, an important piece of business, though. And I invite all of you who are in the chat right now to say hello to Scott Palm. He's there, and he's already got a recommendation, Dave. You might want to take this one seriously. Recreate the Enterprise bridge from Discovery. I like the way you think, Scott. Well, I don't just mention Scott because he's full of good ideas. I mentioned Scott because he is the focus of our fundraiser. It's the Scott Palm Heroic curriculum. Now, Heroic is the curriculum that he has set up in conjunction with Pop Culture Hero Coalition, which was founded by our friend Chase Masterson. Now, the Heroic curriculum has 2 goals. The first part is to teach children who have serious physical disabilities values like resilience and having a healthy identity, breaking barriers, and other crucial mental health and life skills. The second approach is about teaching the peers of those children who have disabilities values like inclusion, ending marginalization, and being an ally. Now, we started this fundraiser a couple of months ago. We are going to continue throughout the summer because we have our eyes on the beginning of the school year, and then October, which is Bullying Prevention Month, a perfect time for this curriculum to go wide in schools. Now, if we reach our first goal, and we are more than halfway there, Scott's program can start and then run a full 6 months. It is great work. It is important work, and it's not the easiest work due to Scott's cerebral palsy. Yeah, so right now, the Roddenberry Foundation is joining with you to help Scott help the world. Go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/missionlogprod. You will see a link there for the fundraiser. Every dollar that you give will be matched by the Roddenberry Foundation. You'll be contributing to something that truly embraces the values of Star Trek and puts it into action. And remember, the Roddenberry Foundation doubles your donation. $1 becomes $2, $5 becomes $10, $20, $25 becomes $40 or $50. Facebook.com/missionlogpod. Look for the post, make a donation. Even if you can't right now, share the post. You'll find it there at Facebook and on our Twitter address, same handle, missionlogpod. We would certainly appreciate it, and it might even make the world a better place.
669-900-6833 is the phone number to call. 669-900-6833. You can use the one tap from your smartphone, or you can go to facebook.com/missionlogpod, retweet the Heroic Foundation, the fundraiser that John was just talking about, and then skip on down and click the one tap and do the thing. And I get lost on what I'm talking about, John. I apologize. All right. So before the show started, we were all chatting, and you mentioned franchise fatigue, which was something that people talked about around 2003, which was when you had the, well, I guess we hadn't had movies at that point. No, Nemesis had happened very recently. You had, of course, Enterprise, and you had just come off Voyager relatively recently. And people thought maybe people were a little tired of Star Trek. Maybe it's time to sort of scale that back a bit. This time next year, there is a chance that there'll be 5 shows on at once, or we may enter a time where it's just like, a show ends and a new one begins. And this is the Rick and Morty driven, not Rick and Morty, obviously, because that'd be something. But the guys, right, Mike McMahon, the guys behind Rick and Morty doing a Star Trek series. There's a Nickelodeon Star Trek series. There is the Picard Star Trek series. There's season 3 of Discovery. We know there's a Section 31 show out there somewhere. And then there are short tracks and there's other stuff.
Academy, possibly,
I've moved to a second hand at this point. I mean, we're up to at least 7 possibilities out there, 5 that I think we know are going to happen. What's your thought on the talk 15 years ago of franchise fatigue? What's your thought on all of the Star Trek that's coming now? Hit any of that in any order you want.
I never believed that franchise fatigue was a thing. I understand why. Every time the studio came to Rick and asked him to develop a new show, and as quickly as they were doing it, he said no every time. But every time they said, if you're not going to do it, we'll just give it to somebody else. And he felt that Gene had turned this thing over to him, and so he wasn't going to give it to somebody else. He felt he needed to honor that and do it. And so, after fighting with the studios, he relented and he would put together a new show. But his thought was, let the show rest, let the franchise rest for a minute, and let people kind of catch their breath and get a hunger for it again. But I think the world has changed. I think with binge TV and the ability to ingest so much media, I think Discovery has proven that people are hungrier for Star Trek than they've ever been, and there's an entire new, I go on the social media platforms and I'm astounded that there are so many people who Discovery is their first show. I don't know why that astounds me, but I'm so used to talking to people about the established history of these shows and from Enterprise backwards that I forget that I'm getting older and new people are entering the world. But it's really heartening to see, and I think that doing multiple shows like this and what CBS's plan is, I think feeds different people different things that they want. I think the big flaw of Star Trek fans has always been every new show that comes out is a mess. That's not the show that came before. That's there's always this attack on Star Trek immediately when a new show comes out, and then people kind of find their way, and it's it turns into whatever it's going to turn into. But I don't believe in franchise fatigue. I think that's false.
Do you think forgive me for pressing the point a tiny bit. Do you think that was an easier thing to argue when there were between 30 and 100 channels, depending on what kind of market you lived in? I mean, when you had fewer choices and 2 of them were Star Trek, do you think it was easier to argue that might be the case? Because, as you pointed out, everybody and their cat is producing original content at this point, from giant tech companies to people like Hulu, which just used to rerun other people's stuff. Netflix would build itself, rerunning other people's stuff. Now almost everybody has a video thing of their own, which means, is the idea of fatigue less likely now because there's just so much more to watch?
I'm certainly that's possible, but I don't think Star Trek fans got tired of Star Trek. I think that, look, the shows that were being put out back then, they were largely formulaic. It was the way that they were put together. There weren't a lot of chances taken, and I think maybe we didn't evolve as quickly as the audience was evolving. And so I think that became a problem. But I don't think it was for lack of liking Star Trek or, if you're a Star Trek fan, you're going to watch Star Trek. I've never talked to anybody who said, I just got tired of Star Trek. It was, I didn't like Enterprise. It was, I didn't, DS9 was not my show. It didn't, and I think you have that today. I think there are people watching Discovery and there are people who aren't watching Discovery, but I don't think if you launch Picard now, and you have 2 shows going and then you launch this animated show, people are going to start saying, that's too much. I can't do this anymore. I don't think that's what's happened or what will ever happen.
I'm still kind of a firm believer that, the delivery, like you were saying, Ken, the delivery platform has a great deal to do with the success or the failure of a show. And somebody in our chat here is just mentioning, UPN at the time, if they no longer wanted to be the Star Trek network, which had been something that had been talked about since the 70s before there was a Star Trek motion picture. If the network identity isn't fully invested in it, if the numbers aren't there to support it, and that's all you've got, then where do you go? I firmly am a believer in the CBS All Access model. Come at me. Because I think it is the only way right now to ensure the success of Star Trek. It may not be for all Star Trek. There might be other places that it can exist. There might be other opportunities. We're talking about 2 different animated series that might have 2 different audiences. But it seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, that the bar of success has shifted so much between what I need on a network and what I need in a wide theatrical release versus what I need on a streaming platform that I can watch on my phone or watch on an Apple TV. It just seems like the market is completely different now. And that actually opens up the opportunity for more Star Trek, not less.
I believe that's true. I also believe that having it centralized like this with, this is not, they're not selling it to a network. They're not selling it to some other distributor. This is CBS honing its number 1 franchise. Well, maybe CSI is their number 1 franchise, but but in my mind, Star Trek is their number 1 franchise.
You just gave me an idea though for a new amusement park is CSI, but the half price tickets are You're a Dead Guy.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Exactly. Solve the crime. Yeah.
Can you be still for 6 hours? Well, then you get in free. Well, half price.
By the way, not to get us totally off track here, TL Coco, Tracy Lee says, love all you guys. Love back to you, Tracy. Nice to see you here.
Tracy.
Yeah. There we go.
Tracy and I once, we went to, for those people who don't know, Tracy was an extra on the show. You see her all the time on the show. But we would do these little traveling shows where it was Tracy and a guy named Michael Braveheart, who you always saw in Sick Bay, whose nickname was Dr. Death, because somebody usually died when he was in the scene. But Tracy and Michael Braveheart, and there was a couple other people, Cameron Oppenheimer, who often played a security guard. We would go on to these, people would want Star Trek aliens to show up at E3 or at whatever the convention du jour was. And I remember we went to Florida one time to do one. It was right after the Northridge earthquake, and they put us. We were in this hotel and had rented out this huge suite that we were using as a wardrobe and makeup staging place. But above us was the parking structure for the hotel, and so here we are, fresh from the earthquake here in California, and we're putting makeup on, and a lot of the people working there were from Florida. And so every time a car drove onto the roof, the whole room would shake a little bit. And the 5 or 6 of us from California would freeze and stand up, and every time all these people from Florida were like, what are you guys doing? Because we'd look at each other like, oh my God, it's happening. But good times, Tracy.
I just want you all to know if anything like that happens, I'm going right under this table, and those models in for themselves. Okay.
It's good to see them, by the way. I forgot to actually pay attention to whether or not they had survived from the one a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, right.
But, yeah, not
all
nearly
good.
as bad.
669-900-6833
is the phone number to call. 669-900-6833. Or you can use the one on top of your smartphone, or the Facebook thing. Why am I blanking on the Facebook?
Click on the Zoom link, Ken. You click on the Zoom link.
Click on the Zoom link in the Facebook, and then we actually have the code. The meeting code is right there. And then Earl will virtually take your hand and walk you through the process of coming out with us. Can I go back? Forgive me. Can I go back to something again about the? I don't know if I should do. I don't know if I should do this or not. No. Although I've got another idea for a theme park. This one's going to be a bit more difficult because it involves illegal substance. But stick with me because I think it's a winner.
Right.
No, it's so. I mean, it does go back to the theme park thing, though. Thrills versus ideals. I mean, how do you do that? Forgive me, and we may have hit on this before, but I'm thinking like I'm an idiot. All right, you said you want to be in Starfleet. You don't want to be one of the colonists. I kind of want to be one of the colonists, Dave. I mean, is there? Can you envision, or how do you envision, or do you guys worry about envisioning an idea for an attraction that doesn't blow anything up? It's funny because you said, the idea is, you're on your way to do something, then something terrible happens, right? And I was thinking, what a great ride It's a Small World would be. Like halfway through. At the same time, you're just going to end up with something like that petroleum exhibit that they're closing down at Epcot to put in the Guardians of the Galaxy, or something like The Land. I mean, yes, and
certainly there are more pastoral things you can do. There are, if you've ever been to Soarin' Over California, for instance, which is
it used to be Soarin' Over California, which was awesome. Now it's Soarin' Over the World or something, which is not quite as good.
No,
but that using those kinds of systems and those kinds of attractions allow us to do it. I'm not saying that the entire park is, or the entire Star Trek land in each park is those, but those are the attraction rides, the high energy rides are something goes wrong. But there certainly are other things. There are, I can't say, but there are there are other attractions that would appeal to you, Ken.
Excellent. Okay, I look forward to.
Though I'm afraid,
because that's really all I care about is what would appeal to me, and everybody else can just I do have another idea for a ride, by the way. Remember that weird thing where they go shooting around the sun in Star Trek 4, and everybody's space, and and just
like
that
glass heads,
that, like a 3D ride, because I'm pretty sure people would love to. 669-900-6833 is the phone number to call. 669-900-6833, or you can use the one tap from your smartphone, or go to Facebook, click on the Zoom link, and enter the meeting code, and then you will be talking to our good friend Earl. Really quickly, I want to remind people about all the other podcasts that are available on the Roddenberry Podcast Network. You're going to want to stay tuned, by the way, because we're going to do the thing here coming up where we're going to record some of our panels and then put them out. I would imagine one of them is going to replace a regular mission log, but then mostly they're going to be in the supplemental place, which means they'll come out on a Monday. We have a new show coming up on the Roddenberry Podcast Network, which we're not announcing yet, except that we're announcing that we have a new one coming up. The place to find out about it, if you're not at San Diego Comic-Con or if you're not at STLV, is podcast.roddenberry.com, which we encourage you to check out, because not only will you find this show there, not only will you find Mission Log there, but you'll find all the other things that the Roddenberry Podcast Network is doing. That's Women at Warp, that's Priority One, that's the Trek Files, and that is daily Star Trek news. We would love it if you would go there and check that out. And if you've already checked it out and you already know about all of them, just like we said before, tell a friend, because we would love for more people to find out about all the great shows that we have on the network. There's not quite something for everybody, but there's a lot for a lot there. I mean, we're tackling, as a network, we're trying to tackle Star Trek in a number of different ways, and we're looking to have those ways grow as well. So plenty to check out. Please do podcast.roddenberry.com.
Ken, I've got an idea for an attraction at a theme park. It's the mission log experience. You invite a virtual Dave Rossi into the room, and you just corner him into not being able to answer questions about the topic at hand.
It's an excellent idea.
Yeah.
Ask me another.
Right. Well, obviously, you know spoilers about the Picard series because you're obviously building a ride about that. So go ahead and dish, Dave. That'd be fantastic. If you don't mind. I'm sorry. I think you were, John, I apologize. I
want to change topics a little bit, even though I could talk and not get answers about theme park stuff all night. I want to change topics a little bit here because Dave has been in such a unique position over your long years at Paramount. And I'm thinking back to the conversation we had last week with Terry J. Erdman. So here's a guy who was on set all day, every day with DS9, with only a few exceptions here and there where he couldn't be there. But that is a totally unique position. Look, actors who are on set, they're not working every day. Directors work an episode here, skip time, work an episode there, and they're not necessarily getting the bird's eye view of the entire production. Dave, you're one of the few people who you were just describing, you worked for Rick Berman. You were not only on set and in production and behind the scenes, but you were actually taking people out on promotional events as well. So you've had such a wide and weird variety of connections to Star Trek, probably over a longer period than really anybody that I can think of. You have outlasted now the Berman era of Star Trek. So you were still involved on a studio level with what comes in and out of there around Star Trek. I'm curious now, what has been the most gratifying and exciting of that? Was there something you could really point to and go, wow, that's the golden period of my work on Star Trek? And B, what do you want to do next? Because you've done it all.
A golden moment,
or job, or experience, yeah. And I'm boiling it down to like a 10-minute period on one day,
I mean, it's a Star Trek Remastered is probably the personal high point, only because my passion for that show, my love for that show, I mean, it's I was swallowed whole by that show, and where everyone of my contemporaries had that picture of Farrah Fawcett in her red bathing suit hanging on their walls. I had the Enterprise. I mean, it was that, it's to have the chance to go back into the original series and enhance those visual effects and I know this gets to a sore spot for some people, but and it was my initial advice to them was don't do it, because I was afraid that you'd have somebody having the Enterprise do barrel rolls and and the focus would be on the visual effects versus the story, which I thought would be a horrific mistake, as did Mike Okuda. And so we held it back quite a bit when we were recreating these shots and creating new shots. But the ability to do that, to go back and enhance something that you loved so much as a kid and continue to today, that had to be the top spot. But a close second is when I got the job on Next Generation, I started 2-3 months before we started filming. So and everyone was on vacation. There was just a very skeleton crew there while we were getting ready to gear up. And so I would go down to the sets and they would all be covered, that you couldn't see anything. The carpets were being replaced. Everything was being repainted. The panels were being replaced. So it became a job very quickly. There was no eye candy to kind of grab me. That first day of filming, when I walked into the engine room and the warp core was pulsing and the pool table was lit up and there were people in uniform walking around. I mean, that was the was a seminal moment. I mean, I just kind of stopped and had to take it in, and someone had to kind of nudge me out of my my stupor. I mean, that was a big moment, and I would say those two moments, and I also had the chance to have lunch with William Shatner, and so he and I had lunch, and this is I have two heroes, Captain Kirk and the guy standing behind me, and I'm never going to be able to walk into a room and meet the guy standing behind me. But having lunch with William Shatner was probably another crazy high point of my career. Yeah.
For the benefit of the people listening to the audio podcast, the guy standing behind him is holding a knife. No, he's it's Superman. He's got a cutout of Superman behind him for people who are not watching the video part of it. I got a question for you. Having been around as much Star Trek as you have, especially nobody had seen Next Gen before Next Gen was made. Nobody had seen DS9 before DS9 was made. People had seen Kirk when J.J. Abrams went to the Kelvinverse. People had seen Sarek when Michael Burnham shows up as a member of his family. People have seen Picard. You're given free reign. Somebody forgets to turn off the lights, and you go in and you find everything and you change it all, and it's the way you want it to look tomorrow. Is Star Trek going to create something completely new in the what should we call it? We'll call it the Rossiverse. Is Star Trek going to create something completely new in the Rossiverse, or is there a part that you would say, no, we really need to go back and revisit this because that's a thing that hasn't been explored enough, or that's a thing where we can tell stories that we want to tell?
I am a firm believer that it should always go forward. It should always be next. What's next for, we've seen the 23rd century, we've seen the 24th century. I think Star Trek should always evolve that way. I mean, there are a gazillion stories to tell, I want to see Captain Ron Tracy drain 4 phasers. But I don't know that I'll ever get that. I'll get that delivered to me. But
there's your theme park attraction right there. That's
That's right. I think that it should always go forward. The thing with Discovery for me is I don't understand why you want to set something in that time frame aside from you're telling this story that Spock has this sister. But the story could have been about Burnham without Spock, without that element. And you could have told the story without, the second you go back there, you are inherently putting your foot in it because of whether it's continuity, whether it's canon, whether it's design, whatever the thing is. And for the people who are new watching Discovery, and this is their first show or one of their first shows, and they're looking at those design elements or whatever it is, and they're saying, hey, old people, you had your thing. This is our thing now. Don't worry about the design. Don't worry about the canon. Don't worry about, I can understand why that's being said. But for somebody like me, the Enterprise will always be the Enterprise from that era. So, it's when the Enterprise showed up on Discovery, I can objectively look at it and say, wow, that's a pretty cool design. But there was another part of me that was just, I know designers, they love to change things, because for the people on Discovery, for the people watching Discovery, they don't care what the Enterprise looks like. They want it to look cool and they expect it to be there, I suppose, but they don't really care what it looks like. I as it relates to the original series, or, a way of remastering it to, obviously you can't just plop it in there, but there are textures and things you could do to upgrade the Enterprise without changing its structure. And so for those people who don't really care, they don't really care. But for me, I do care. And so from a fan standpoint, I from a production standpoint, I completely understand why they did it. It's a very cool design. I can't fault them that. You get the chance to play with the Enterprise. From a fan perspective, of being a very passionate fan about that character, it changed in a way that to me just made it not the Enterprise, and I was kind of bummed. So again, going backwards in time, telling those stories, I think you inherently not alienate, but you pour a little itching powder on the folks who see things a certain way. But that's the trick with all of these franchises, with all of these. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's the Marvel Universe or Star Wars or the DCU or whatever it is. Each one of these characters, these shows, these elements, they mean different things to different fans. You're never gonna please everyone. So, as a creator, you have to go in and say, I'm doing this for me, not for the fans. And you put out what you're going to put out. So in that context, if it were me, I would always go forward because I wouldn't want to step on anybody's toes.
Man, I feel like we're just getting warmed up and now we're out of time. So Dave, we have to do this again. All right.
I'm hip.
Until then, Mission Log Live is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment, executive producer Rod Roddenberry. Technical production on Mission Log Live, always knocking it out of the park, Earl Green. Be sure to visit podcast.roddenberry.com for the latest from the Roddenberry Podcast Network, including not just Mission Log and Mission Log Live, but Women at Warp, Priority One, The Trek Files, and your new daily Star Trek news. If you'd like to support Mission Log directly, give us a look at patreon.com/Mission Log. Some fun items over there, including early access videos to your weekly Mission Log. Thanks to everyone who joined us live or later, and we will talk to you next week.